A short horror story. The Bones. Police officer Matt Jackson approached the house. No one lived there at present. A fire had started inside of the building late last night, and when the firemen had stopped the fire, they came across the bones. They alerted the police straight away, thinking the worst. The weather on that day was far from ideal. The rain came down hard, causing puddles everywhere. Matt made his way to the entrance, where the door was open, then peered into the darkness of the hallway. Inside, he saw David lurking about. "What are you doing, mate?" he asked. David turned round with a startled look, and replied, "Bloody hell, Matt. You made me jump." "Where are the bones?" Matt asked. The other officer glanced at the closed door of the cellar, then said, "Some people picked them up earlier." There was a horrible stench in the place that made Matt gag. David proceeded into the kitchen, and said, "No one knows how old them bones are. They could have been there for decades." The kitchen was a mess. Everything was damp and decaying. "There's nothing else we can do, until we get more information," said Matt. "Come on, let's get out of here and get back to normal duties." David followed him out of the house, where the walls were scalded, and half of the roof had caved in. Before he got into his car, he turned to David, and said, "Don't go in there again, it's a health hazard. If you haven't noticed, the place could fall down at any minute." He opened the door, and David made his way to the other car, which was parked only a few meters away. Matt started the engine. In the small mirror just above his head, all of a sudden, he thought he saw a child standing in the entrance to the house. Out of disbelief, he closed his eyes. Once he'd opened them, all he saw was the empty doorway. Maybe he'd imagined it. The vehicle drifted up the road, trying to avoid all the puddles. The other car followed closely behind. The young girl, no older than 10, screamed at him as he got closer. He didn't know where he was. He tried to reassure her. This is when he noticed the girl, holding a knife. "Put that down, sweetheart," he whispered. A shadow appeared behind the child. She turned towards it, petrified. Suddenly the knife she held was grabbed from her, and plunged deep into her chest. Matt flew from the pillow, his breathing was heavy. He noticed it was still dark. He peered at the little clock which sat on the cabinet. It was only 3:13 a.m. He was used to having bad dreams, and thought nothing of it. He ran a hand through his hair and rested his head against the soft pillow. Suddenly, he saw something move in the bedroom window. His heart raced, and reluctantly, he turned his head to it. The face of a child peered back. She had wide staring eyes, blood ran from a wound on her neck. She opened her mouth, and many rats appeared, as they ran down her grubby nightgown. All Matt then remembered was falling out of bed, and losing all consciousness. He walked into the police station, feeling on edge. David met him in the corridor. With a smile on his face, he said, "Another day, another pound." Matt wasn't in the mood. The dream he'd had last night was something he could cope with, but what happened after that was something else entirely. What did it all mean? "I need a coffee," Matt answered. Then he made his way up the corridor. "Are you okay?" asked David, a worried look on his face. "I'll see you later, mate," was all that Matt replied. He'd made plans, with some mates, to head to the pub. It was a Friday night, and he felt like he deserved it. It had been a strange week. Ever since those bones had been discovered, his nightmares were getting worse. The most unusual thing was, they always involved the girl. He put on his nice clean shirt and looked at himself in the mirror. Tonight, he was on the pull. At least it would take his mind off the job, which was difficult at times. At 29, sometimes, he felt that being a police officer was more stressful than it was worth. A knock was heard. "Who could that be?" he said. Matt was meeting his friends in the city center, and wasn't expecting company of any kind. He quickly put his jeans on and another knock came from the entrance. He ran down the stairs, then headed to the front door. Matt opened it, and stood in the shadows, away from the wall light, was someone he didn't recognize. "How can I help you?" he asked. The strange man then said, "Are you him?" Matt didn't really have time for this. What are you talking about? He asked. He was an odd-looking sort. His face was badly scarred on one side, and was in his late 60s. It's a pleasure to meet you, was all he said with a grin on his face. Matt was getting bored with this now. What do you want? I don't even know who you are. The man seemed bemused by this, and answered, Soon, you will know who I am. The bones which you found are why I'm here. How do you know about that? Asked Matt, getting irritated with this person. The man took a step back, before saying, We'll meet soon, and then you'll know the truth. It's good to finally meet you. I must be off. With that, he made his way down the 3 steps, which led to the small front garden. He looked back one more time, with a smile on his face. He then disappeared behind a tall hedge. Matt was unsure what to make of this. The man was odd, but he shrugged it off, as time was getting on. He went back into the house, then closed the door. While he ran up the stairs, he didn't see the 2 people, staring at him with great interest, through the living room window. In their hands they clutched a book. Rotten Fires of Hell, as they rained down onto the land of lost souls, the young girl screamed. Rats scurried around his feet, and the child stood a short distance away. He was terrified to look at her, as he believed she was evil. One rat took a chunk out of his leg, and the pain was unbearable. With his hand, he tried to smack the rodents away, but it was useless. They were everywhere. Matt stared at the clock, realizing he'd had another nightmare. He couldn't take much more of this. Please just stop, he begged. If only he knew. The next few days, he noticed things that worried him. Maybe it was his imagination, but he now had the ability to read other people's thoughts, like the lonely nerd, contemplating shooting his classmates. Or the attractive woman who always had a smile but in secret she was a victim of domestic abuse. Matt couldn't take any more. One night, while a storm attacked the city with immense force, the child who he had dreamt of, countless times, appeared to him. He was unsure if it was a dream, but there she was, standing in his living room, holding a bag. For many nights now, you have tormented me. Why are you here? He asked. She came closer, then replied, Soon you'll understand. In a blink of an eye, she was gone. Then he saw the bag, which she'd held, on the carpet. He picked it up and reluctantly peered inside. Matt entered the station, and headed to where the bones were being kept. In the big white room, he was greeted by a woman in her 40s. Her name was Susan, and she originally came from up north, which explained her filthy sense of humor. How can I help you? She asked, looking at him with interest. Matt then answered, Any news on the bones? There's one thing we're sure of, they are not human bones, she said. Matt didn't know what to make of this. At least there wouldn't be a murder inquiry now, which in a lot of ways was a very good thing. So, who do the bones belong to? Matt asked. We must do more tests. It'll take a couple of days. Until then, I'm in the dark, she replied. Thanks, Susan. I'll see you later, was all he said. He left the room and felt another headache coming on. Later that day, the message he had found in the bag sat on his desk. What did it mean? He read it again. I've always seen you in my dreams. You've been chosen. What does that mean? He muttered. A terrible feeling came over him. He was at home relaxing when he received the call. The bones had been stolen. The thing which confused him more than anything else was, none of the doors in the station had been tampered with. Matt felt uneasy. He needed a drink to sort out his nerves. In the cupboard was a bottle of gin. He poured himself a glass and threw it down his neck. In bed, Matt heard a noise. What was that? It sounded like a door being opened. He peered at the clock. It was an hour before midnight. He ignored it, as it was probably cats fighting in the front garden. He closed his eyes, and within seconds, he was fast asleep. All of a sudden, he was grabbed and pulled from the bed. Matt looked up and observed many people in the room. Their faces covered by outlandish masks. He tried to scream, but they stuck something over his mouth. He fought them the best he could. Everything then went dark. Matt opened his eyes. His hands and feet were tied. He tried to wriggle free, but the ropes were too tight. In front of him stood a crowd, wearing grotesque masks, while they chanted unknown words. They also wore long white robes. Someone from the crowd walked to him. This person was only 5 foot tall, then removed their mask. Matt, with shock, realized who it was. It was the little girl who he had dreamt about. She glanced up at him. With a smile on her face, she said, "You've been chosen. This has always been your destiny." Matt tried to speak, but only a muffled sound came out. He watched her back away and rejoin the crowd. 2 people approached him and dragged him along the ground towards what looked like a small hole. All the people muttered words which he didn't understand. Finally, he was dropped to his knees, inches from it. He looked down. At the bottom were the bones. What did this all mean? Someone else from the group came closer and kneeled down, so he faced Matt. He removed the mask. It was the man who'd knocked at his door that night. He said calmly, "Tonight a sacrifice will take place. You've been chosen by the child. And your blood will give life to the most powerful force. The Dark Lord will live again, because of you." Matt was horrified. From the man's pocket appeared a knife. With no warning, he grabbed Matt's hand and cut his palm deep, so now the blood dripped into the hole. Matt screamed in sheer horror. 3 more people came forward and held him. This is when he noticed the bones increasing in size. How was that possible? On them, a pink substance was observed, while it bubbled. From the strange substance, thick black fur grew at an alarming rate. Everyone sang joyously. Matt realized he didn't have much time left. The man smiled at him, then said, "Satan is being reborn, and for many years, we have waited for this day. Your life was not in vain, dear friend." Matt, terrified as can be, finally had the courage to look back down the hole. He saw the yellow eyes of the beast as they stared at him. The crowd applauded. Above, an immense fire erupted across the heavens, and from the ground, little red creatures appeared, attacking anyone close. Before Matt lost all consciousness, he heard despairing cries from all around, as hell was being unleashed onto the earth. The end.